Social media did not begin as a weapon against the mind. It began as a promise. A promise that, for the first time in history, ordinary people could speak without gatekeepers, share without permission, and be seen without asking for a stage. It felt like liberation. Expression was raw, imperfect, human. You posted because you had something to say, not because you were calculating how it would perform. But systems do not remain neutral for long, especially when billions of eyes gather in one place. Slowly, almost invisibly, expression became data. Every post, pause, click, and scroll was no longer just a moment of communication, but a signal to be captured, measured, and optimized. What mattered was no longer what you meant, but what kept you engaged. Platforms learned that attention was not given freely. It had to be engineered, and so the architecture changed. Feeds replaced timelines, algorithms replaced choice, and relevance replaced truth. The system stopped asking what you wanted to express and started deciding what you should see, feel, and react to next. In that shift, social media ceased to be a mirror of human thought and became a machine for extracting emotional energy at scale. Anger, fear, validation, and outrage proved far more profitable than reflection or nuance. Content that slowed you down quietly disappeared, while content that provoked you was amplified. Over time, this trained users to communicate not to understand, but to perform. Posts became optimized for visibility rather than meaning. Opinions sharpened into slogans, and complexity was sanded down into something clickable. What looks like self-expression today is often a response to invisible incentives shaping behavior beneath awareness. And once expression is filtered through extraction, something subtle but profound happens. You are no longer speaking freely inside the system, you are being shaped by it. This is where the real transformation begins, because a mind trained to perform for attention slowly forgets how to think without it. The human mind was never designed to live in a state of permanent stimulation. Thought requires space, silence, and friction, yet social media collapses all three into a continuous stream of urgency. Every notification interrupts, every headline demands an instant position, every post invites a reaction before understanding has time to form. In this environment, thinking is no longer a process, but an obstacle. Reflection feels slow, hesitation feels like weakness, and neutrality feels suspicious. The platform rewards speed over accuracy, emotion over analysis, certainty over curiosity. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the mind adapts. Instead of asking why, it asks how it should feel. Instead of examining ideas, it scans for signals of agreement or threat. The feed trains the nervous system to stay alert, reactive, primed for stimulation, as if danger is always imminent. This constant low-grade urgency fractures attention into short bursts that never quite settle long enough to mature into thought. Over time, the brain begins to confuse reaction with intelligence, volume with insight, and immediacy with relevance. Complex ideas feel exhausting not because they are inaccessible, but because the mind has been trained to flee discomfort rather than sit with it. Outrage becomes easier than understanding, mockery easier than critique, repetition easier than reasoning. What emerges is not ignorance, but a new form of cognitive erosion where the ability to follow an idea from beginning to end slowly decays. The mind becomes excellent at detecting emotional cues and terrible at building coherent frameworks. And once thinking collapses into reacting, control no longer needs to be enforced. The system does not have to silence you. It only needs to keep you stimulated enough that you never stop long enough to think. In a world saturated with information, intelligence begins to feel effortless. Answers are always one search away, explanations pre-packaged, opinions already formed and waiting to be adopted. Exposure replaces effort, and familiarity masquerades as understanding. Seeing an idea repeatedly creates the sensation of knowing it, even when it has never been questioned, tested, or integrated. Social media accelerates this illusion by collapsing distance between information and identity. You do not slowly build beliefs through struggle and revision. You absorb them fully formed through headlines, clips, and confident voices speaking in absolutes. The mind mistakes recognition for comprehension and agreement for thought. Over time, this creates a strange cognitive condition where people feel informed yet remain fragile, certain yet unable to defend their views beyond repetition. Opinions become shortcuts, borrowed not because they are true, but because they are socially reinforced. The algorithm rewards alignment, not depth, and so the safest position is the loudest one already validated by the crowd. To question too deeply risks friction, isolation, and invisibility. It is easier to echo than to examine, and so thinking becomes outsourced. Instead of wrestling with ideas internally, the mind scans externally for what to believe next. This produces a population fluent in language but shallow in meaning, confident in tone but hollow in structure. The tragedy is not that people lack intelligence, but that they are never required to use it fully. When thinking is replaced by recognition, the mind grows passive. It stops generating and starts selecting. And once intelligence becomes performative rather than internal, curiosity withers, replaced by the comfort of certainty borrowed from somewhere else. At a certain point, ideas stop being tools for understanding the world and become symbols of belonging. Social media accelerates this shift by fusing belief with identity so tightly that questioning an idea feels like questioning the self. Algorithms learn quickly what you agree with, what angers you, what comforts you, and then they close the loop. You are shown more of the same, not to inform you, but to stabilize you. The feed becomes a mirror that only reflects what you already are, slowly narrowing the range of thoughts you are exposed to. In this environment, curiosity becomes dangerous. To wonder openly is to risk misalignment. To hesitate is to invite judgment. To change your mind is to betray a version of yourself that the system has already rewarded. Certainty is safer than exploration, outrage safer than doubt. Over time, the mind adapts by policing itself. Questions die before they are fully formed. Ambiguity feels intolerable. Complexity becomes exhausting. What once might have sparked fascination now triggers defensiveness. The algorithm does not need to censor dissenting ideas. It simply buries them under familiarity and emotional reinforcement. And so, intellectual curiosity, which thrives on uncertainty and openness, slowly suffocates in a climate that demands coherence of identity above all else. The tragedy is subtle. People do not stop thinking because they are incapable, but because thinking threatens social stability in a system that rewards predictability. The mind becomes loyal before it becomes curious, protective before it becomes honest. And once belief is tied to identity, the desire to understand quietly gives way to the need to defend. When the mind has been trained to react instead of reflect, to repeat instead of create, and to defend instead of explore, the result is not chaos, but compliance. A population that feels informed, yet rarely thinks, expressive, yet rarely says anything new, connected, yet internally fragmented. This is what cognitive decline looks like in a digital age. Not the absence of intelligence, but the erosion of the conditions that allow intelligence to mature. And yet resistance does not begin with abandoning technology or retreating from the world. It begins quietly, internally, in moments the system cannot easily measure. Resistance is choosing slowness in an environment optimized for speed. It is allowing an idea to remain unresolved long enough to deepen rather than rushing to collapse it into a conclusion. It is noticing the impulse to react and letting it pass without feeding it. In reclaiming attention, you reclaim thought. In reclaiming thought, you reclaim agency. The most dangerous thing you can do in a system built on constant stimulation is to pause, to read something difficult, to sit with discomfort, to question your own certainty before attacking someone else's. These acts do not look revolutionary, but they are, because a mind that can think independently cannot be fully predicted, easily categorized, or effortlessly controlled. The machine thrives on noise, immediacy, and repetition. It weakens in silence, depth, and reflection. Social media did not make us incapable of thinking, it simply made thinking optional. And anything optional in a system designed for efficiency slowly disappears. The choice, however, still remains: to live as a surface skimming endlessly across stimuli, or to step beneath and think again. Quietly, deliberately, without permission.